I am a boomer with OBS. I haven't used it in a long time, so give me a break here. Whatever. So first, I'm going to start off with some websites that you guys should know about if you want to get into guns and gun buying and gun building and stuff. Please do not buy gun parts on Amazon. Most likely, you're going to get a bunch of Chinese garbage. It'll break halfway through your first magazine. So don't do that, especially not optics, lights, lasers, none of that. You see $100 scope, quote, sniper scope with a laser and a night vision built into it. Oh, it's such a great steal. Don't buy it. It's garbage. It's airsoft crap. So don't even bother. Um, Now, I won't say that Optics Planet does not have cheap Chinese garbage on it, but if you kind of know what you're doing and what you're looking for, you can get some really good deals here. And we're gonna go over like what to ignore, what to actually pay attention to. So you should know the site. I've ordered stuff from this website. I've never gotten ripped off. I've never gotten scammed. There has been times where I've bought stuff and I got an email saying like, "Oops, it's actually out of stock," or "It's out of stock, but we won't get more for like 3 months. Do you want a refund or anything?" So they're a little bit slow, maybe on the upkeep, on the uptick, but haven't actually like gotten scammed or ripped off or anything. So um, I use it. I don't have a problem with it. The website does kind of look a little third worldy, but they're fine. Second, it's going to be Palmetto State Armory. If you know anything about guns, you probably already know about PSA, but you are going to get some really, really good deals here. Let's see. And they're just like another, warehouse. They make their own stuff, but they sell a lot of other companies' stuff as well. And like right here, this is $400 off. Actually, I do want this gun too. That's a really good deal. I haven't seen it that cheap anywhere else. So they got a lot of good discounts. A lot of gun stores don't like Palmetto because they undercut a lot of local gun stores. But I mean, I've also never gotten ripped off by them. They have a really well. Let's say their quality control is known to be a little spotty, but I've never had anyone complain about their refund policies or anything like that. They're usually pretty good about communication and righting wrongs. So I think they're honorable. Like this right here, you get a complete lower for $100, all built, everything. That's a pretty good deal. I assume it's built. Yeah, because it's not a kit, so it comes built. What the heck is this? You gotta stop that, dude. I kind of don't hate it actually. I don't know if I'd buy it. Huh. Okay. Well, you gotta do what you want to do, I guess. Yeah, Christmas sale. I mean, they sell like handguns, rifles, optics, like everything. It's like Optics Planet. They're like a warehouse basically. And then finally is gun.deals. It's a aggregate website from a whole bunch of other different websites, and this will tell you stuff that's like new in stock or on sale. And it's just where you can find a bunch of good deals really quickly. I usually check this site once every day, if not every 2 days. I've also gotten really good stuff from here. This website doesn't actually sell anything. They just redirect you to the website that's selling the thing. Um, so those are some, 3 good websites to start off with. If you're going to buy gun parts, it's better to buy them directly from the manufacturer if you can. It'll be a lot easier to buy directly from the manufacturer. You're going to have a better warranty, and it's going to be a lot easier if something goes wrong and you need a refund or a replacement instead of going through a middleman. And then we're going to go over some. Oh, I forgot to do lights. That's fine. We're going to go over pistols first. And this is just a crash course. Oh, I forgot to do YouTubers too. Dang it. I'll do that too. I'll add it. This is not a high production value stream at all. So good. If actually, I'll start off with ignore. Don't buy anything from Sky. I heard that flak comes out of the back of the gun when you fire it and hits your face, and it probably won't hurt. I mean, it's not gonna kill you or anything, but it's gonna hurt, and a gun shouldn't do that. High point ignore unless you're like really, really, you're in a bad area. You just need a gun, and you have $200 and you can't spend more than that, and you just need a gun. Sure, you can buy a high point. It's a very niche market. If you need a gun and you're super broke, buy a high point. That's fine. And then really anything that's not a big name brand, I wouldn't bother buying. If you see a gun in the local gun store and you've never heard of the manufacturer, I wouldn't bother. Unless it's like really cheap and you have money burning a hole in your pocket, then go ahead, I guess. But if you're new to guns, I wouldn't. I would stick with stuff that's trustworthy, reliable, has a good reputation. And obviously, if you're a new gun owner, you don't need to buy a Dan Wesson. You don't need to buy a Staccato. You don't need to buy John Wick guns. You don't. It's a waste of money. Frankly, for what they are, they're a waste of money, but competition shooters and people with a lot of money will buy them. There's really no reason for, frankly, anyone to buy a pistol that's costs over $2,000. Up to like there's pistols out there for like $6, $7, $8,000. Ignore them. Caution, Taurus has kind of a spotty reputation. I've known people that have Tauruses that work completely fine. I've known people that own Tauruses that blew up in their hand. So I wouldn't buy a Taurus, frankly. There's another brand also called Gerson, which is kind of on the level of Taurus, in my opinion. Taurus, I think, is Brazilian. Gerson's Turkish. Canik has a really big name because they're really cheap and they're surprisingly good for the amount of money that they're charging. You can get a complete full-size pistol from them for like $300. Canik actually has a pretty good reputation. I've heard that their guns are way better than the price would have you to believe, but the fit and finish is still not great. Quality control is a little spotty, so you know, you get what you pay for. Sarzalmaz, I'm pretty sure is just the military name designation for Canik. I own a Sarzalmaz ST9, and I've never had a single problem with it. But there's SARS out there that have problems. So they're also Turkish, so have some discernment. But I'll say, anecdotally, my Sarzalmaz is really good. Colt, I know everyone's like, why is Colt in the caution category when 1911? So yeah, that was Colt like 100 years ago. Colt nowadays has a lot of problems. That there's a whole history to that. I wouldn't buy anything new from Colt, frankly. Um, they're overpriced for what they are. Arex, I own an Arex. I have an Arex 01TC. I really like it actually, but I kind of had to fiddle with the sight plate to get it off because the screws immediately stripped out. So I'm suspecting that their screws are not top quality because I basically had to hammer a hex key in there, or not a hex key. What is it called? It's like a hex screwdriver into it and then screw it out that way. So they're Slovenian. It's actually a Slovenian military company. Like the ARX is the official sidearm for the Slovenian military. So I like mine, but their quality control is also very spotty. Kimber, I know, has a great reputation because of like John Wick and stuff like that, but Kimber has a lot of problems too. There's a infamous problem with Kimber 1911s where they don't chamber properly in the first round. And this actually comes up in, I think, John Wick 3, where he loads a Kimber and immediately brass checks it on the first round because they're notorious for not doing that. Kimber, I think, used to have a better reputation until a couple years ago. If you know, you know. But they're also pretty overpriced for what you're getting. I know some of them are like under $1,000, but if you're a new gun buyer, you don't need to go out and buy a Kimber. It's kind of a waste of money and time. And then good. If you just want a gun, if you just want a gun, no bells and whistles, you just want something in your hand that works and you don't have to worry about it, just get a Glock, frankly. Glock is like Apple, where they make very few upgrades to their guns and they'll charge you a mint for it and it'll come out about 10 years too late. But they also don't want to change their formula too much because as soon as they change something, then people get pissed. So Glock's a Glock. I don't understand the obsession with them. Some people own 10 identical Glocks. I don't know why. I don't own a Glock. I've shot several. They're fine. They're like the perfect C of a pistol. They don't do anything great, but they're not bad. They work. Reliability is like their big thing. Is Glocks will just run until they blow up, which happens, just not that much. So yeah, if you don't know jack about guns, you just want something that works, get a Glock. Beretta is also good, obviously. Everyone knows Beretta is good. My friend has an M9. He loves it. The thing about the M9 though is their optics mounting system is kind of odd because their guns don't, they don't have like a wide enough top for standard optics, so they look kind of funky. But Beretta's good. You can get the PX4 Storm. I've heard it's like a phenomenal carry gun, but I've never shot one. CZ's really good. SIG's really good. I frankly don't have an opinion on the 320 thing. I think it can go either way. I feel like a lot of the stories are suspicious. So, but I will say that all the classic series and the 365 are solid. I have a 226 Legion. It's my favorite pistol I own. I might get a 229 at some point. I kind of want to get a SIG Pro because they're cool. Um, but if you want to go with SIG and you want peace of mind, just either get a 229, a 226, or a 365. PSA I put on here because I know several people that have PSA daggers and they have no problem with them. I've never used one, so I can't say for sure. I've heard stories about bad quality control and stuff like that. PSA, like I talked about earlier, Palmetto State Armory, their quality control can be spotty. I've never had a problem with them personally, but they definitely have a reputation for some spotty quality control. That said, I've never heard of anyone not liking their PSA dagger. HK is obviously good, but you're going to be paying a premium for it. So if you're a new gun owner, you probably don't need to bother. FN is solid. Springfield is also solid. Walther is fine. Ruger is fine, though Ruger has a lot of guns that are just kind of dated. The Ruger RXM is new, which is basically just a Glock, and I've heard it's actually really good. Smith & Wesson is solid. They're American Classic. These are all good options, but if you just want something easy, uh, get a Glock or a SIG 365, CZP10 or P09, Beretta PX4 Storm, PSA Dagger, FN 509. Those are all good options. So now we're going to talk about AR-15s. Oops. Well, I guess that's what we're getting. I'm going to start with ignore. Don't buy an AR-15 with a polymer lower receiver. It's not worth it. Yes, they're dirt cheap. You can get a whole AR-15 with a polymer receiver for like $200, but it's going to break. I definitely would not rely on a polymer lower in any sort of firefight situation. Because what happens if you trip and fall and it hits a rock? Well, your gun's broken. So don't even bother. I'd be cautious with anything from ATI, that's American Tactical Imports, Black Raiden Ordnance, or DPMS/Panther. Uh, DPMS actually kind of got a little bit more popular because Kyle Rittenhouse used a DPMS AR-15 in his whole shebang, but they're still known for not having great reliability. He actually had to use his forward assist in his altercation, which kind of goes to show you that they're not super reliable, but they're cheap. Black Rain Ordnance is not cheap, and they're also not good. I would actually just go ahead and say don't even bother buying a Black Rain Ordnance AR-15. I think it's School of the American Rifle on YouTube did like a diagnosis on a gun that was having a bunch of failures, and they found so many points of failure on this. Like the fit and finish was garbage, stuff was like all out of size, out of position. So I would frankly not even buy one. And then American Tactical Imports just has kind of a spotty reputation. And then good, these are all AR-15s that are good to buy: CMMG, FN, PSA, Griffin Armament, Noveski, and Daniel Defense, Sons of Liberty Gunworks, LWRC, Ruger Sig, Smith & Wesson, and Anderson. If you're a new gun owner, I would kind of limit it to like the top four. You can buy a Sig M400 for, I don't know, $1,000. Smith & Wesson, I think you can get the Military and Police 3 for 700 or 800. Anderson, I think went under, but you can still find their parts and their guns around for pretty cheap. And then Ruger has AR-15s and stuff like that they're under $1,000. Everything under that, well, actually, PSA. I have a PSA AR, and I haven't had any problems with it. But I also don't shoot it a ton. So if you are planning on doing a ton of shooting, I think it would be good for your first rifle to learn how to build an AR-15. And then once you get a little bit more experienced, maybe you can shell out a little bit more money. So PSA is good. Like I said, if you want to learn how guns work and you want to get into building guns and stuff, get some of their kits, their lower parts builder's kit, and maybe like a stripped upper and do all the stuff and get all the tools and kind of learn and piece it together. I've built a lower. They're not super hard, but the first time you do it is a little weird because it's more about learning the feel of how everything clicks together and holding springs down where you're trying to hammer and pins and stuff like that. So it's a little frustrating your first time, but it's not that bad. I mean, if you can build a computer, you can build a gun. Daniel Defense, Soljan, Noveski, CMMG, FN. These are all more premium options. A Daniel Defense will run you about $2,500. A Noveski will run you about $3,500 to $4,000. FN I think is like $1,500. CMMG is probably around $2,000. Sons of Liberty Gunworks is also probably around $2,000, as is LWRC. And actually, I'm going to go back to the browser here. I'll show you on Palmetto. If you go up here to PSA, this is PSA's guns that they actually make. AR-15 is just all the AR-15s that they sell. So if you go to AR-15, there's kits right here. Here's a build kit. You have to buy the upper and lower receiver. Well, you have to buy the lower receiver separately, but then you just piece it all together. Get a armorer's toolkit that has like hammer, what is it called, like pins and what are they called? There's like metal pins that you hammer and they push pins out. I forget what they're called, but you can get armorer's toolkits. They probably actually sell them here. Yeah, armorer's toolkit. Yeah, stuff like this. Gunsmith kit, torque drivers, cleaning kits. Cleaning kits aren't armorer's kits, but cleaning kits are good too. But yeah, you don't need to spend, what is it? You don't need to spend $350 on this. That's outrageous. You could easily spend $50 and get a decent one. Yeah, this is you don't need this. This is fine, like 70 something dollars. Lastly, this is just optics. If you want optics, please do not buy Amazon optics that are really cheap. Buy something from these ones: EOTech, Aimpoint, Trijicon, Sig, Griffin, Swamp Fox, Holosun, Vortex, or Primary Arms. I wouldn't buy anything that's not on this list. Unless there's like a newcomer and they start getting a lot of traction, but I'd be pretty skeptical. Kind of the gold standard for cheaper red dots is the Sig Romeo 5. It's like 120 bucks. You can find them on sale for maybe 100. They're perfectly usable. EOTech is obviously good. The EXPS 33 and all their holographic optics are great, though their more niche usage is for night vision. And if you're a first-time gun buyer, you don't have night vision, and you probably don't have the money for night vision because they're thousands of dollars. My friend has a night vision monocle, and that was, I think, $2,000. So if you actually want binods or quad nods, you're spending college tuition basically. Aimpoint kind of fell apart in the last couple of years. Not fell apart, but they've been missing. Trigicon's really only good for the ACOG, which is also like $3,000. Holosun's kind of the second like gold standard because their stuff is inexpensive and it works. And then something I forgot to put on this list was lights. You don't need a laser aiming module unless you have night vision, which we just discussed you don't. And laser aiming modules are the cheapest one in the market. I think it's the Holosun Iris, and that's like $1,000. Anything more than that is $1,500 to $3,000. So you don't have that. So we're not going to talk about it. So lights, the gold standard is Surefire. They're also very expensive. Their base flashlight's like $300 for pistols. Anything more than that is more expensive. The runner-up would be Streamlight. Frankly, just as good light performance as Surefire, but considerably less expensive. But their durability is a little lower. Their tape switches go out faster. But if you're going to be a civilian shooter, I don't think you'd really notice that much of a difference. This a lot of like high round count stuff. So you'll see like gun reviewers who shoot 1,000 rounds a day say that, oh, this gun part sucks. It broke after a month. It's like, well, yeah, but you shot 50,000 rounds. Your average person doesn't shoot 50,000 rounds in multiple lifetimes. Streamlight's fine. I've used the Sig Foxtrot MSR. It's comparable to a Streamlight, but I think they're a little bit less expensive or comparable in price. So those are also decent. I wouldn't use Valkyrie or Olight. They're just not worth what they're charging. And then I guess we'll talk about gun furniture. Magpul's your best friend because their stuff is light, extremely durable, inexpensive. So if you're getting into gun building and you want good solid furniture on your gun, most people use Magpul. They're kind of the industry standard at this point. I personally like Fab Defense. I think they're a little bit heavier and a little bit more expensive, but I like the form factor a little bit more. I don't like Magpul's pistol grips. I don't know exactly why. It's been a while since I've used them. But the Fab Defense rubberized grip, I think it's the AGR 43 or something like that. I really, really like that pistol grip. And I have their stock, which is also really nice. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of other gun furniture, but you want your furniture to be lightweight and durable, and it doesn't need to be expensive. If it's more expensive than a Magpul, ask yourself what you're getting out of it. If you're not getting more performance or more durability for more money, then just buy the Magpul. There's nothing wrong with using Magpul. There's a reason everyone uses it. On this topic, foregrips. Chances are you don't need a foregrip. You only really need a foregrip if you have a laser aiming module or a light switch on the top of your gun on your upper receiver top rail. And for whatever reason, when you C-clamp your your rail. It puts your hand in a weird position that doesn't give you good access to the buttons or messes with your wrist or something like that. And you can kind of shift how you grip the gun with foregrips. But chances are you don't actually need a foregrip. Attachments don't work in real life like they do in video games. Adding a foregrip to your gun is not going to just magically reduce recoil. They're really only there to make accessing your tape switches or other switches on electronics on your top rail easier. I don't use foregrips, I use hand stops. And that works perfectly fine for me. Hand stops are typically less expensive. They're smaller, they're lighter weight, they take up less room. There's a reason that more and more people are switching to hand stops over foregrips, especially like the big chunky ones you saw in the GWatt era. And then let me get rid of all these windows. Lastly, we'll talk about some YouTube channels that are good sources of information. Hop is really good, HOP. He's turbo autistic, and he reviews a lot of outdated or like more niche stuff, and he does a lot of stuff with night vision and night fighting. So he has night vision, laser modules, that kind of stuff. But he's really good about being honest about what he's talking about. His friend Brassfax is also really good. He's a little bit more serious. And then Focus Trip is really good. Um, a lot of the big gun channels don't really give you information so much as they just kind of review and do like pop review stuff. So stuff like TFB, Honest Outlaw, Grand Thumb, Administrative Results. They're fine channels and they're fun, but they're not going to tell you anything about gun performance, gun buying, should you buy this part or that part. Hop's really good about comparing parts, gun parts specifically. And then if you want to get like turbo autistic, then you can just go to ARFCOM and ask a question on the forum there, and you'll get 10 billion answers that will tell you what to think. But they know what they're talking about. But you probably will get yelled at. So, lastly, I will show off this because I think it's both fun and informative. So this is ARFCOM's AR-15 builder. You can also do 308, R700, and AKs, and I think there's Glocks. Oh, they added more stuff: T22, MP5s, Glocks, and R870s. Some of these don't work really. The AK one, for whatever reason, whenever I try to use it, crashes a lot. I have less problems with the AR-15 one, but a lot of these other ones, just be aware you could get 10 minutes into your build and then it just freezes and breaks. So if you go to build AR-15, you choose your caliber. 223 Remington or 5.56 is pretty. I mean that's what you're going to be using. You can go to pre-build, but you can go to scratch. That's what I do. You go to explode, and you'll actually individually pick your parts from a bunch of different manufacturers. And these are all real parts that you can buy. They're real manufacturers, real parts, real specifications. I'll tell you your total up in the top left or the top right. So say if you just want a legal rifle, which has to be a 16-inch barrel. Here's all your 16-inch barrels. You can filter them by manufacturer, gas port, caliber, length, all this kind of stuff. So let's see, Brownells. Brownells makes good stuff. They're an American classic. Faxon makes good barrels. Faxon's pretty good. Spikes. I've heard some people don't like spikes, but I don't have any experience with them. BCM's also really good. You can see prices here. Like this is 239. That's 500. Why would you spend? I wouldn't spend 500 bucks on a barrel. 175. If you go to Brownells, it's 150 and it's good. So we'll go with that. Muzzle devices. Don't buy a compensator unless you're gonna suppress your rifle. If you're gonna put a compensator on your gun, just put a suppressor on it because nobody likes shooting next to the guy with a compensator. It makes your gun extremely concussive. It makes your gun extremely loud. If you shoot in an indoor range with a compensator on your gun, you're probably going to get yelled at and possibly thrown out. So just be aware of that. A lot of, like there's a lot of YouTube videos that compare flash suppressors and stuff like that. Compensators are kind of dumb. Like they really yeah, maybe they'll lower the recoil on your gun, but you're better off getting a good flash suppressor and then training around the recoil. Your gun's going to recoil no matter what. So if you learn to mitigate recoil through training, that's going to be a lot more beneficial to you than trying to slap a cool compensator on your gun and annoying everyone else. The A2 birdcage flash hider is still considered the gold standard for flash suppressors, and they're extremely cheap. It's $8, $8 from Brownells. May as well just get that. Your gas block, I mean, this is whatever. Unless you, again, if you're gonna suppress your gun, get the rifle speed gas block because it makes it easy to adjust your gas settings. That suppressor land is a whole different ballgame. As soon as you put in suppressors into your gun build, a lot of stuff changes. So if you are going to put a suppressor on your gun, which you should, frankly, get a rifle speed gas block or a suppressed gas block. You do need a different gas block if you're going to be suppressing your gun. So for this build we're doing right now, we're not going to do that. Actually, you know what? We will do that. I'm going to try to see if they have a suppressor gas block on this. I don't know if they do. Do they have, who is it? YHM? They don't. Okay. Well, we're going to pretend that this is a suppressor gas block. Gas tube, I mean, there is stuff we can talk about versus rifle, carbine, and pistol length gas tubes. But, I mean, for this gun, just go carbine. Like, there's a lot more information that I'm not telling you because it's unnecessary for first-time gun buyers. You'll learn all this stuff as you get into building and talking about suppressors if you want to suppress, which you should, especially if you're going to be thinking about using this gun in any sort of fighting scenario. Because a big part of flash suppression and suppressors in general is not just sound mitigation, but flash and signature reduction. Because maybe they don't hear where your shots are coming from. Suppressed gunshots are still extremely loud. But if they see the flash from your gunshot, that gives away your position just as much. So we'll pick a handguard. Again, handguard is kind of personal preference. A very standard is there a length? A very standard handguard setup now is a 16-inch barrel with a 15-inch M-lock handguard. Like, this is as basic as you can get. But then it just comes down to, like, what you want it to look like. Don't buy key mod. Nobody uses key mod anymore. Don't buy quad rail. You're throwing a bunch of unnecessary weight on your gun for no point, and purposeless weight is weight without a purpose, and you're wasting stamina. Just get M-lock. It's standard for a reason. This will come with your handguard. Upper receiver. I mean, if you notice that these upper receivers all look nearly identical, upper and lower receivers on AR-15s are standardized. So, I mean, you buy an upper is an upper and upper. Bolt carrier. There's a bunch of stuff about finishes on bolt carriers that you can look up. Like DLC is the highest end bolt carrier. There's a bunch of different like titanium nitrate. A whole bunch of different stuff. Ion bond, chrome. This depends on how much you're shooting. If you're shooting a ton, then yeah, maybe you do want a better finish on bolt carriers. But if you're just a civilian shooter and you just want something to defend your family and your church or whatever, just nitride. It's standard. It'll wear out faster, but Unless you're shooting like thousands and thousands of rounds, it probably won't make a difference. Dust covers, whatever. Forward assist. Some people say that you don't need a forward assist on your gun anymore. They're obsolete because guns are just so reliable that you don't need it. That wasn't true for Kyle Rittenhouse, and you don't want it to be not true for you. So put an put a forward assist on your gun. Charge and handle also doesn't matter that much unless you're shooting suppressed. If you're shooting suppressed, then it would be worth it to shell out for a suppressor charge and handle, like the M84 Gas Buster. But the standard, the one that people are going to tell you to get, is the Raptor SD, the Radiant Raptor SD charging handle. There's others, but this is what I have. This is what you're going to get recommended most of the time. Lower receiver. A lower is a lower is a lower. And a lot of these small parts are pure preference. Maybe you want yours to look a little funky. Maybe you want yours to have his meat tenderizer, whatever, it doesn't matter. Mag catch, it's literally whatever. Do you want it to be red? Sure, let's make it red. Trigger does matter. I don't think they have the trigger that I use in here, because mine's trigger tech. Yeah, that's not in here. Geisley is another thing that's pretty standard. The SSAE, I think, is pretty. Where is it? I know they have it here. SSAE. SSAE is pretty well recommended. There's also the Luru Tactical. I don't know what the name of the trigger is, but Luru Tactical. It's like $100, and people say it's one of the best triggers you can buy for that kind of money. SIG actually makes pretty good triggers. It's a 5-pound pull weight. This is 3.5, which is also really good. I would say I wouldn't have a pull weight more than probably 7 at max. 5 is pretty standard. Mine's a Trigger Tech Duty trigger, which is a 2.5-pound pull, and it's a straight trigger. You see. Don't get single stage. I mean, it's preference. I mean, I'm not going to tell you what your preference is. If you want single stage over 2-stage, then go ahead and get it. 3.5. Okay, it's 3.5, not 2.5. But this is the trigger that I have in my AR. 3.5-pound pull weight, straight flat. This says 134. I think I got mine for $100 on sale on Optics Planet. The difference between single stage and 2-stage is single stage is you pull the trigger and you'll pull it back, and then the gun will fire. 2-stage is you'll pull it back a little bit, and then there will be a wall, and it stops, but the gun hasn't fired yet. If you pull any more than that, it will push past the wall, and then the gun will fire. I prefer duty trigger because they feel more safe to me because I can ride that wall until I need to shoot. Single stage might shoot a little faster, like on demand. But I mean, with a 3.5-pound pull weight, it's not that big of a deal. So I prefer 2-stage to single stage anytime. My friend's AK is single stage trigger, and I do not like it. Trigger guard, this is preference. Trigger pins, they're pins. Pin set, it's pin set. Selector is preference. So either you want a collapsing stock or a solid stock. Originally, sliding stocks were made to accommodate for armor, so thicker armor needed less pull. The stock to push out less. Obviously, if you have armor, having this big monolith of a stock is going to be harder to get your cheek weld and your eye up to the optic. But I mean, collapsing stocks are just as reliable as anything else. So pretty much everyone uses sliding stocks. I mean, as long as your recoil tube is not made out of polymer, it's probably fine. Stock is mostly preference. Like I said, Magpul. This is also really popular. The B5 enhanced SOP mod. Battle Link I've heard is pretty decent. These are all Magpul. HK, but it's $140. Daniel Defense. What is this? Viper. Oh, Strike Industries. Yeah, Strike's okay. The stock I have is, let me see. I know they have it. Fab. No, that's not the one I have. Yeah, that's not the one I have. Whatever. I'll just put a Magpul on it. If you're gonna get a Magpul stock, get the CTR. Buffer spring. Unless you're shooting suppressed, just get a buffer spring. If you are shooting suppressed, you might need to mess around with buffer weights like this. If your gun is suppressed, it'll be overgassed, which means your bolt carrier is going to be moving faster. So you might need to have a heavier recoil spring to slow down the rate of fire to actually chamber properly. In which case, you might get an H1, H2, or H3 buffer spring. If you're not shooting suppressed, you just get a buffer spring. End plate, get one with a QD end plate or a QD mount. There's really no reason not to have it. Grip, I do know they have the grip that I like. The AGR-43, yeah, I like this grip a lot. Magazine, for magazines, again, your best bet is going to be Magpul, the PMag. You can get like 10 of these for $100. These things cost like $10, and like most other magazines are not. Yeah, this one's $20. This one's 15 for aluminum, which aluminum mags are cool. I have 2 of them, but they're not any more reliable than Magpul. There's a reason that P mags are the standard. $15 for hex mag, $25 for a battle mag. HK is like $60. Yeah, they're crazy. Lancer's 15. Yeah, so it's like if you need 10 mags, if you have a chest rig that holds 10 magazines, I mean, you're just better off buying P mags. They're cheaper and they're good. Also, not all magazines are created equal. Don't buy Don't buy Duramag. Duramag magazines are garbage, and your gun won't work. So here's our gun. It's a very standard AR. So then you can go to attach. Check sights is to check your co-witness. Operate is like you can move the stock out, change the selector. So we're going to add sighting. I didn't talk about them, but let's throw an LPVO on here, which is a low-powered variable optic. So this optic is 1x magnification up to 6. Typically an LPVO will be typically 1 to 6. Some of them will be 1 to 8. Some will be 1 to 10. But they're still struggling to get a good optic that functions well at 10x and at 1x. And you're seeing more companies that are doing like, well, we'll do a 2x to 10x. And that performs a lot better than trying to do a 1x. Usually at 1x, like you'll have some glass clarity issues or some vignetting, and then at 10x it will be kind of blurry. So, I mean, a 1 to 6 is perfectly acceptable. And then reticle, you're going to want something with some drop distance. So let's see. We'll limit it to 1 to 6 and then go by reticle. This one's probably okay. This one's probably better. That one's not bad. Oh, because it's a Trigicon, that's why. We're going to go with this one. So add a mount. And typically for an LPVO, you want the back of the scope right above your charging handle, so right about there. And then we'll also add, you should also have backup iron sights on your gun too, even if you have an optic, because your optic might break. And it'll be good to have folding sights. Magpul does make folding plastic sights. They're perfectly acceptable. I don't know if it's going to fit under the scope here. There we go. Look at that. That way, if your scope breaks, you rip it off and use your irons. We're also going to add a flashlight. Surefire, we'll add a Surefire. This also needs a mount. We're going to get a offset mount like this. Put that all the way out there. We're going to add a tape switch. And we're not going to add a foregrip, but we are going to add a hand stop. Something like this is perfectly acceptable. And see, this way, the back of my hand will rest on this hand stop, so my thumb can rest on the tape switch. I'll put a suppressor on there. Look at that. Perfectly acceptable build. And now you'll notice, what? But your gun's $3,300 bucks. Yeah, but the scope's probably a big part of it. The suppressors are expensive. Like the cheapest suppressor you're gonna get is I think the YHM 556 suppressor, and that's still like $500. If you want something high end, like the what's it called? The Huxworks Flow, I think. That's like 2,000 something dollars. Most suppressors are easily above $1,000, maybe above $1,500 or $2,000. You can get the Griffin Armament direct thread suppressors, which are much cheaper. But direct thread suppressors, once you put them on and shoot a couple mags, the carbon buildup on the threads is going to lock that suppressor on there. And eventually, because suppressors are wear items, they will eventually break. Once you shoot enough rounds through them, even if you clean them, eventually they will break. If that's basically welded onto your barrel, you have to replace the whole barrel. And then also the suppressor. So if you have a quick detach suppressor, usually you'll get more life out of it, but they are much more expensive. So yeah, perfectly acceptable gun. This is a gun that I would use. I would take this red bit off. I wouldn't actually put that on my gun. Also, you can paint your gun if you want. If you want to put like dog water camo on your gun, you know what? Go for it, dude. Here, we'll do, it'll be Byzantine. Black and yellow. Yeah, Byzantine AR, dude. And then there's a whole other thing about building AR pistols. If the barrel length is under 16 inches, then legally it's a pistol, which means you can't put a stock on it. You can only put a pistol brace on it. And you can't put a vertical foregrip on it. You can only put angled foregrips or hand stops on it. If you've been watching this, again, there's no reason to put a vertical hand grip on, or a vertical foregrip on there. So that's not a problem. But the big thing is you can't put a stock on it. Absolutely not allowed. You will go to jail. There's also forced reset triggers, which make your gun shoot faster. You can look it up on YouTube for more information. Forced reset triggers, or FRTs. I didn't cover AKs because there's no point. The AK market is destroyed. Let me pull up a PSA again. If you're gonna buy an AK, either go to a local gun store and pray you find something. Do not buy a VSKA. It'll blow up in your hands. It happened to my friend. He was shooting it, it literally blew up in his hands. Be skeptical about Century Arms. Wasser 10s are okay. I've heard that they're decent. PSA makes their own AKs. Where are they? AKs, yeah. They're surprisingly decent. Hey, this is cool. Like right out of Metro. Yeah, so there's really no reason to buy an AK over an AR. You're gonna, AKs don't use 223 and 5.56 in America, and that's the most common ammo that people use here for rifles. So if, God forbid we get into some sort of Civil War scenario, if you're scavenging for ammo, you're going to be pretty sad to have an AK and all you're finding is 223 and 5.56. You can buy AKs chambered in 5.56, but why would you even bother? I mean, if you're there's a gunsmith maybe about 40 minutes from where I live. They're the biggest AK gunsmith on the Eastern Seaboard, and they said if you want a decent AK that is comparable, that's like on par with an AR, you're spending $2,000 minimum on the gun. And they had an AK that was Ishmash Russian AK with full Zenitco furniture on it, and I was like, oh, how much does that cost? And he said $12,000. So the gun that we just built was $3,300. If you want a comparable AK to that AR, you're spending 4 times as much. So there's really no point. That being said, if you want an AK for fun, the PSA AK 104 or 105 has rails on it, so you can use optics and foregrips and stuff like that. If you just want iron sights, then they have the AK 101 through 103. I've heard they're decent. I've never used them myself. My friend's AKs are FB Radom, so it's a Polish AK, AKM chambered in 7.62. It's pretty good. The irons don't line up properly, but it shoots real good, and he does have the side mount for the optic on it. So that's where I would start. That's your early buyer's guide. Anything if you're talking about SMGs, PDWs, quote sniper rifles, DMRs, as an early first time gun buyer who's just getting into it, I wouldn't bother looking into that kind of stuff. If you've never built an AR-15, if you don't know how to shoot an AR-15, if you don't have a pistol, you don't train, you don't need to be looking into this special niche stuff. You'd be way better off buying. I actually think that PSA has bundle deals for the dagger in their AR. Let me see. Here you go, right here. PSA dagger and a 16-inch PSA AR for 800 bucks. $400 each for these things. You would be much better off buying this and training with it as much as possible and getting the feel for how your guns operate and tweaking the setup. Put an optic on this, maybe a hand stop or something, put an optic on your pistol, and just train with these as much as possible. You're much better off doing that than buying some $5,000 Noveski AR and like a custom made 2011 and trying to John Wick stuff. If you try to John Wick stuff, you will die. What was I just gonna look up? Yeah, Noveski. Yeah. So $2,000 Noveski, $3,000 Noveski, $3,200 Noveski. You don't need a Noveski or a Daniel Defense, frankly. There is not like if you're a new gun buyer, buying this $3,200 AR versus me with this thing, I'd win. Like no doubt. So training will always make up for quote lower standard gear. train, do cardio, work out, learn your guns, learn your optics, zero your optics, train with live ammo, do drills with people. You're $800. So say if you had $3,200. Well, Cyprian, I have $3,200. Why can't I buy the Noveski? Buy these for $800 and spend the rest of the money on optics and ammo and training sessions. That is way more worth it. Otherwise, you're just going to be an expensive loot drop for some guy with his daddy's Ruger 77 that knows the hills. So that's the end of the stream. Feel free to ask questions in the Discord, and I don't know, maybe we'll do a Orthodox gun thing at some point. All right, have a good night, everyone.